My wife is, well, I think she's a Quaker. She sometimes says she's a Quaker. She has some kind of spiritual dimension, at least. Anyway, that's what she says. But she's always asking me why I keep reading these books about theology. Because she knows I'm an atheist. She knows that. So she's a bit baffled, I think, by, you know, why I would buy A Purpose-Driven Life, or why I would buy Karen Armstrong's book on the history of God. And it is a bit mystifying. I'm a bit mystified myself by it, I must say. So her questions do sort of cause me to ask myself, you know, why I'm looking at these things and what the relevance of these ideas are to me and to other things I'm thinking about. Particularly the term God, of course. I have absolutely no belief at all in anything like a personal God, or any other sort of God, really. Belief would be completely the wrong word to describe my use of that term in a sentence, or any kind of engagement I have with it as a concept. I don't have any belief. I have interest and I have uses for it occasionally, but not belief. But obviously, her asking me these questions does make me think, you know, how am I thinking of it? How am I using that term? What kind of an explanation or what kind of a definition for God would I be happy with? I'm certainly not, well, it would just be a joke for me to make any kind of association with the God of the big three religions. Any kind of personal God has no real explanatory power for me. It doesn't add anything to what I already know, or what I can already get from other sources. So any kind of God that answers prayers, or, you know, the God of Bruce Almighty, that God, no, it has no, I have no place for that, really. But maybe there are some other terms which I'm less unhappy with. The de jure God at the moment in atheist circles is Spinoza's God, of course, which is the one that Einstein allied himself with. I can sort of see that. I'm not always entirely happy with that, because sometimes I think when atheist writers or scientific writers ally themselves to Spinoza's God, they're really not studying Spinoza terribly well, or they're not allying themselves to his philosophy, his theology almost. It's more of a kind of shorthand for nature, or reverence for nature, or something like that, which is fine. But I think Spinoza's God is more complex than that. And what little I do know of Spinoza's God, which isn't just nature, it's all that is, I think, is how it translates, like all that is. It's much more complex than just nature. It suggests, oh, I don't know, intentionality, I suppose, is in there somewhere, given that I am intentional. I have intentions, or at least I seem to have, and my dogs even seem to have some kind of intentionality or agency. So if God is all there is, then presumably intentionality is part of that particular picture. So I have some sort of sympathy for that. I could sort of go along with that a little bit. I quite like the God I've spoken about before, which is the one that comes through Parmenides. Is it Parmenides? Yeah, that's sort of the idea that God is a perfect sphere. Sounds mad, but I quite like that. I quite like the idea of a perfect sphere. I think spheres and circles have an enormously important place in the human psyche, which I think is why we make this sort of circular gesture when we're playing charades to mean the whole thing. So I think this spherical God of Parmenides and what's the other guy called? Well, it comes through Pascal anyway, and a bunch of other writers. It's kind of a Neoplatonic, Plotinus as well, I guess. Yeah, Plotinus, kind of Neoplatonic understanding of God. I quite like that one. I won't have any problem with that. For me, that one doesn't have any agency. It doesn't need any agency. It's simply a graphic representation of the category of all categories it contains itself. So I quite like that. And the third one, which I'm just sort of kicking around right now, is one that I think comes up in a book called On the Shores of Nothingness by someone whose name I have trouble pronouncing, but it looks like Ravant. So, hello. I'm back. It's the following day now, but I'm continuing with this. Does the word God have any relevance, really, or is there a way of defining that term which I can find even reasonably acceptable? And if my memory serves me right, and it's now 24 hours since I made the first part of this video, I was talking about a book by Ravant called On the Shores of Nothingness, which I can't remember, to be honest, but it might have been the origins for this other understanding of the term God, which is this sense of, well, the image I have in my mind, which I think comes from that book, is this idea of like an island of knowledge. And the centre of the island represents, well, the most accessible forms of knowledge. You know, this plant, this rosebay willow herb here, and we can start exploring this island from that point. But as we move towards the shoreline, it becomes slightly more liminal. The knowledge available becomes more difficult to access, and we may have to even do what they did in the Netherlands and try to extend the shoreline out to push the ocean back, or extend into the ocean with jetties and pontoons and polders and dikes and all that sort of paraphernalia of land creation. So as we extend the boundaries, the shoreline of this island of knowledge, it gradually extends outwards into the ocean of the unknown. But of course, as the island gets larger, because of this extension, the shoreline also gets longer. So knowledge creation, knowledge acquisition, doesn't diminish the amount of contact between the known and the unknown. It actually increases the amount of contact, just like an island that's enlarging will have a longer shoreline. So that's obviously a poetic metaphor. So how does God feature in that? Well, I think there's three places for this term God in that image, and it's completely abstract, of course. I'm not even sure if it's useful. One is the idea that God is the shoreline, this expanding boundary between the known and the unknown. The other, of course, is that God is the unknown, and the third is that God is the island. Personally, I like the shoreline, boundary component of that image best for that whole thing. Because if you place God in the area of the unknown, then you're starting to confront a God of the gaps argument, in which God diminishes as the area of the known increases. And if you associate God only with the known, then as knowledge increases, God is kind of, well, either abandoned and left behind, or else is changing in ways which are perhaps not entirely useful. So I quite like the idea of this expanding boundary.